You are listening to the Prosperous Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosperous Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Hi, Greg McCollum here for another edition of Prosperous Law Podcast. Thanks for joining me. Today I want to talk about a couple of things. One, I want to talk about confidence and what confidence is and how important it is to be confident. Because if you're confident, you can accomplish things. We all know that. He said, this person doesn't have confidence. Well, how do you get confidence? And then the other part of that is encouragement. And what is encouragement? And before I talk about that, I'd like to talk about coaching. I have a Prosperous Law. We coach criminal defense law firm owners and teach them and show them and help them and guide them so that they can reduce stress, because being a criminal defense lawyer is stressful. A good friend of mine has a multi-million-dollar practice, and it's a general practice where they do personal injury, they do civil litigation, they do family law. But the founder of it, and he's still actively engaged in it, is at heart he's a criminal defense lawyer. That's what he loves to do. And so he's, unlike me, he's in the practice daily. He's in fact, I talked to him today, and he's prepping, for a week-long murder trial that he's doing basically as a volunteer, as an appointed case that he was asked to step into it, and he's doing it. And interestingly, he said to me that, Greg, you said to me that you didn't know how I ran a multi-million-dollar law firm and also are so engaged in trying the cases and being in court every day. And he said, I'm starting to hit a wall and see what you're talking about and how difficult that is. And I think the reason he does the cases is because he's very passionate about it. He loves being in court. He loves seeking justice. He loves standing up to the prosecution and the police. And if you're not a criminal defense lawyer, that strikes people as odd, because you think, well, why would you stand up to them? And it's because if you're not a criminal defense lawyer, you don't understand how much people are pummeled or crushed by the judicial system and how unfair it is. I know that there was a big murder case that we did, and we got low fees, and it was a high-profile case. And I was thinking about it the other day because the client had just lost the appeal, and I would say the DA's office here in Myrtle Beach probably easily spent $1 million. They had every kind of expert that you could imagine because they didn't have any evidence, so they were really manufacturing evidence, and is what they were doing. And I won't go into that. And so now you have this other defense that's, it's under 100,000, 50,000, whatever it is, 60,000 total because they were co-defendants, and then just getting crushed. And so he feels strongly about that, as I do. And so he's standing up for the little guy, which actually in this case is a woman who had no criminal record anyway. I won't go into the facts of it. But in his situation, he's actively doing that. So in terms of coaching, another friend of mine who's a very successful personal injury lawyer had gotten an invite to go to a very prominent coaching program that focuses mostly, it's a nationwide program, it focuses on personal injury law. And so he'd gotten a solicitation to come to the seminar, which I'm actually going to next week. And when we were talking about it, he said, I don't know, this is probably some scam. What do you think of this? Snake oil salesman. I don't know if I should go to this thing or not. I don't know if it's worth it. And so that's his view. That's one of my closest friends. I knew him in college. He was a roommate in law school. Very, very close. I was in his wedding. He was in my wedding, that kind of person, but he doesn't believe in coaching. And I don't try to convince him about coaching. I know my own experience, and the coaching helped me tremendously. And I wouldn't be where I am without it, because I didn't know, one, it was possible, so I had no belief. Two, I didn't know what steps to do. Three, I didn't have the confidence to go through it, and I didn't have the courage to step through fear and do the things I needed to do to jumpstart and then start growing my law firm. I didn't have the courage to do it. And the reason I didn't have the courage to do it is because of the belief. I didn't have the belief. It won't work. That was my belief. And so that just shuts you down. That just stops you. It won't work. And then you look at the coaching industry, and there are a lot of examples apparently of coaching that isn't valid, that is, for lack of a better term, con artists who are misguiding people. But as I say that, I'm not even sure that's true. I think a lot of that concept comes from salespeople who are selling marketing. I think there's a lot more of that out there than there is coaches. The coaches I met are good. And some of the coaches I met that aren't that good are still genuine. And most of the people that I'm associated with that have become a lot more successful, in other words, they've doubled and doubled and doubled their law firms, did it as a result of the coaching. So maybe in other areas outside of law, there's coaching that is dishonest. I'm not sure. My experience with it has been very good, but the starting point and my belief to begin with was that it was a scam. It's a scam. And in my book, From Chaos to Control, I talk about the first event I ever went to. And I went there with my friend Kirk, and there were some things that happened, and we thought we had been scammed. We thought we had flown to Miami to go to a coaching event, and it was just a scam where we signed up for something, paid with a credit card, and then when we got there, no one was there. We thought we'd just been hoodooed, and I don't think we paid much for that. I think I paid like $250 to go to that kind of teaser seminar. But then at that point, not only had I been scammed out of my $250, I'd bought an airline ticket and rented a hotel room, and my friend had rented a car. So we'd have been not scammed out of that, but we'd wasted that money, and we thought we were fools. Now, that isn't what happened. It took a minute for us to find the group, but that was what went through my head. So coaching is a scam. I know that I grew up hearing this phrase talking about consultants and coaches and things like that I think, how's it go? Those that can do, those that can't teach. And I still, when I see people online coaching and they've made multiple millions of dollars and things like that, that still runs through my head. And I think, well, if you were so good and successful at that, why are you now coaching others? And I think there are a couple of reasons. One is that for people who change careers, it's refreshing. Also, coaching as a business model is favorable for people who had companies with a lot of staff, a lot of overhead, a lot of brick and mortar. So it's a good transition for people to do that. There's also the satisfaction they get out of changing people's lives. And then there's also the genuine altruistic part of it where they're helping other people and they're making society of that field, for example, the criminal defense law field, better. And that's one of the things that is part of my mission, is that if I can take these criminal defense lawyers out there, whether that's you or someone else, and teach you how to be profitable and teach you how to double your revenues and then double them again, then the effect of that is now you're going to have the resources to be a better lawyer to stand up to the criminal justice system, which bullies people, crushes people, shatters people's lives. If you've been a criminal defense lawyer for any length of time, you know that's true. All the resources are poured into the DA's office, the police departments. They get anything they want. When you show up for trial, you're sitting there with your client, maybe your client's mother, and then you look across the room, there are 20 police officers, and not to even count the crime lab and all the experts that they've hired. So it's just uneven. And how do we balance that? We balance that by becoming more successful, having a law firm business, charging enough fees and growing however you do that so that you have the money to fight back. I'm a big proponent of fighting back. Personally, maybe my views are radical, but it seems to me that really, even though we say we're free in terms of the criminal justice system and police, to me, it's a police state. The police, if a policeman walks up to you, there's no Fourth Amendment rights really anymore. They can pretty much do anything they want to do, and you're powerless to stop them. And then it just goes downhill from there. So I'm very passionate about that, and I want to help other criminal lawyers grow enough so they can fight back and defend, quote, the little guy, because no matter who you are, no matter how rich and famous you are, no matter how successful you are, once you get arrested and are charged with a crime, certainly a major felony, you become, quote, the little guy, and you're fighting against Goliath. And so I'm very passionate about that. So confidence, what is confidence? Confidence, in my definition, is the belief you can do it based on past results. Confidence is the belief you can do it based on past results. That's my definition. And so if you haven't done it and you don't have past results, you're not confident. Confidence comes from having some success. If you haven't done it and gotten the past results, then it's really not confidence, it's a belief. It's a belief combined with hope that you can do it and it will work out. But even though you believe it, and even though you believe in yourself, and you could call that confidence, but it's really just taking a chance to try to do something, because until you get the results, you really don't know. But once you get one result, and then get another result, and then get another result, now your confidence based on that empirical data, the actual real world results, because now you know this works. So that gives you confidence. So I reached the point with coaching pretty quickly where I had confidence that it would work. And that caused me sometimes to do things that my coaches told me to do that I really didn't believe were going to work. It really seemed like nonsense, but it worked. And so the more I did it, the more it worked. The more I did it, the more it worked. And some of the things they told me to do seemed counterintuitive. Some of the things they told me to do seemed almost stupid. Like, really? You want me to do that? That's what difference is that going to make? But I just did it. And so it worked. And so I became confident in my ability to grow my law firm. And I also became confident in my coaches that they knew what they were talking about. Because the men and women that helped me, they do know what they're talking about. They did at the time, and they still do. So what is encouragement? Encouragement is when somebody is basically saying to have the courage to do it. Have the courage to do it. So what is courage? in my definition, courage is trying to do something. Courage is trying to do something and stepping through fear. Courage is stepping through fear and trying something when you don't know what the results are going to be. You hope they're going to be a certain thing, but courage is trying and stepping through fear. I believe that in order to have confidence, you have to have the courage to try something and step through fear. And once you have the courage and try something and step through fear, then that leads to confidence. Because now you tried it, you didn't know if it would work, it worked, voila, and now you're confident and you're able to do that again. So one of the things that's so important is encouragement. And this is key to our society. And when I think about in terms of confidence, and I coached when my daughters were young. One of my daughters was a pretty good soccer player, and I'm talking about 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, somewhere in that range, like 7 to maybe 12 or something. I think this was through the YMCA. And so, we gave out the participation trophies. And there's a big thing about that participation trophies teach kids not to try. And I'm not necessarily sure that I agree with participation trophies, but the concept I think is pure and well intended, is that to give people encouragement for playing, and then that will give them some confidence. I'm not sure that works, but that's the concept, and the concept is pure. And I remember reading an interview, or watching an interview one time with John Travolta, and his mother was an acting coach, and they asked him, when you were growing up, because he was on that sitcom. It was about a high school class or something. I can't even remember the name of it. But as a teenager, I'm pretty sure he's a teenager, and he was maybe late teens, maybe his early 20s when he was on the show, but he was young, and he was on a hit show, and he played a certain character. And I remember the interviewer asking John Travolta, when you were growing up with your parents, did they push you and challenge you, or did they praise you and give you encouragement? And he said that as a child, whatever he tried to do, and certainly as a child actor, his parents just praised him. He said, when I left my household, I thought I could do anything. I thought I was the greatest person in the world. I had nothing but praise from my house. My parents, he said, we would just do the silliest thing, and our parents would gush and tell us, oh, you're so smart, you're so talented, so believe in you so much. And that really propelled him forward. A similar thing happened with, I think it was Tom Brady. Tom Brady, when they were asking him about his parents and the approach that they had, how did his parents treat him? Because Tom Brady, I think he ran the slowest 40-yard dash in NFL combine history or something. When you look at him, standing there getting his weigh in or whatever with his shirt off, wearing shorts, he's not even muscular. And he was never fast, right? But he was considered, the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. And he said that his parents did the same thing. That when he was, I can't remember, I think at some point he wanted to play as a professional baseball player. And he said his parents would say, well, yeah, of course. You can be a professional baseball player. And then he said his dad would take him to the batting cage and sign him up, for lessons and things like that. And then that, evolved into him playing football or something. But his parents, all they did was tell him he could do it. He could do it. And when you're getting that encouragement from people you trust, you tend to believe it, as opposed to someone saying, you're never going to amount to anything. Who do you think you are? Nobody makes it in pro baseball. Nobody makes it as an actor in Hollywood. The percentage of people that do that, the odds are against you. But in both of those instances, the parents did the complete reversal. Yes, you can do it. You can do whatever you want to do, and then actively took steps to try to help them. So encouragement is important. And I've also talked about in a previous podcast, who do you surround yourself with? Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Are they encouraging you or discouraging you? If you have the courage, you will at least try. If you have the belief, you will at least try. And it's not a hard concept to understand. In terms of when I started coaching, I had I'd invested a lot of money in real estate in 2008, 2009. The real estate market crashed. I've read this about a lot of people that what changed their life is they hit rock bottom. I had hit rock bottom. I'd gone from over $5 million worth of real estate with a net worth of about $2 million to a negative net worth in a short period of time. And then I'd kind of neglected my law firm because I had the real estate, because I had this belief that I could never make money as a criminal defense lawyer, even though I liked doing it, but I couldn't do it, so therefore I couldn't do it. Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And so I didn't believe it was possible until I saw a little glimpse of things through this seminar I went to. But the key there was that I was so far at rock bottom. I went from $2 million to a negative net worth. Now I don't have $2 million. I owe like $1.5 million, or I'm negative $1 million. I can't remember the exact number, but I'm negative. I've got this crushing debt that I can't pay. Had that never happened to me, I never would have signed up for coaching, because I never would have said, all right, it probably won't work, but I don't have a better idea. I'm at a point in my life where you get to where it's like I'll almost try anything. Now, it changed my life, and it's remarkable that when I look back at it, that I even said yes, because the first little seminar I went to, I think I paid $250 and flew to Miami for a weekend. And then after that, I signed up for my coaching program. I can't remember how much it was, but I think it was $1,250 a month, which is about $15,000 a year I spent on coaching. And what happened is, in 6 months, because I started the coaching program in I think it was July of 2013. So by the end of the year, my revenue had went up basically just under $70,000. And if I spent $15,000 that year, in that 6 months, I spent $7,500 on coaching. So I spent $7,500 on coaching, and the actual result of the revenue, increased revenue, based on 10-year average of what I was doing. I made an extra $69,500 by spending $1,500 or $1,250 a month, and basically $7,500. So when I look at it on paper, that's a 10x return. Spend $7,500, make just under $70,000. And so what did that do? Now, something that I thought was a scam that I tried worked. I got a 10x return. My practice, when I looked at it, because one of my coaches at the time said most lawyers they've got about enough blood and sweat and effort in their body to make about $250,000 in a solo law firm. And he was talking about any kind of solo law firm. And so I was curious because I thought I made more money than that, but I went back through my books and I averaged it out for 10 years. And I was really shocked to learn my 10-year average was 220. So I think the year before I started coaching, I think my year end was about like 239 or something like that. And that's the number I'm using. So then it goes up that amount. So what amount of money I spent on coaching, I got a 10x return. And so I think at that point, I had the belief. At that point, I was confident because I had the courage to do it. I had the courage to step through fear and not be too afraid of losing money or looking stupid or being ridiculed. Then I got a 10x return. And so that was the answer. Then at that point, based on trying and doing and getting the result, then I had the confidence. I had the confidence that I don't know what they're doing to me. And this was 11, 12 years ago. And I look back at it sometimes to try to say, like, well, what did I do? What different things did I do in those 6 months to get that kind of return? In other words, why did my revenues just kick up? Because I really wasn't at the time. I don't think I was spending any money on marketing. And I'm kind of surprised that I even agreed to spend the money on the coaching, because if somebody had told me to spend that amount of money on marketing, which at the time probably would have just worked, there was no way I would have done it. But I for whatever reason, I stepped into it and it changed my life. And then since then, the revenue numbers have just gone up and up and up, and my stress levels have gone down and I have more free time. And it's just an incredible transformation. It's something that I would have never believed that would work, because I thought coaching was complete bullshit. I thought coaching was a scam. I thought that this is stupid. And I knew friends of mine that had paid for things, and I thought I would talk to my other friends and talk about how foolish they were and how they were getting scammed. But in my experience and what I did and what I learned, it wasn't a scam. It was real. And I'm so thankful I had the courage to step through the fear and then gain the confidence to continue on and to continue to grow my law firm, which is still going today. We're still growing. Last time I checked, I think we're growing at 32% this year, and our revenues are well over $1 million, approaching $2 million, growing at 30%. So this is so important and such a key to have a belief, get some encouragement, step through fear, find the right mentors, find the right people that know what to teach you how to do, and then that can change your life. It changed mine, and I had a lot of different mentors help me, and I'm so grateful for them. So that's the podcast for today. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great week. Hope to see you next time.
If you want to know more, go to prosperouslaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.